Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to Urban Consulate, Cincinnati. It is so great to be gathered with you on this day, Monday, February the 8th. It's Black History Month, right? And in a year after an incredibly tumultuous reckoning, and as we're still sitting in this reckoning with our nation's most recent confrontation with white supremacy and racism, Black history feels real different today. And so here at Urban Consulate, we want to name and claim that we celebrate Black history, Black present, and Black futures every day. It just feels really, really good to sit in a deep and abiding gratitude, grief too, hope, and love and care for the trajectory that our ancestors before us and the freedom fighters today have plotted and continue to plot toward our freedom. And so let's sit in that moment and demonstrate our reverence every day for that gift, for that struggle. We have a lot to discuss today, and we've got some really great voices to help us tease apart a really, really interesting conversation about protest and public space. But first, an exciting development. Many of you who have followed us followed Urban Consulate Cincinnati throughout the pandemic know that we've been learning and experimenting with the best ways to keep you engaged, to keep you involved, and be sure that you are part of these dialogues in a meaningful way. And sometimes we've live streamed, and we've left an opportunity for Q&A in the comments under the Facebook video. Other times we've turned off the live stream to make it a really intimate experience so that we can be present in a room and Zoom together. There are trade-offs to both. Live streams are great because we're able to reach people we might not otherwise reach. We get new people who may not have gotten the link and they haven't registered for the event. But it sometimes means that we take away some of the depth of the conversation we're able to dig into together with you. So what we really, really want is an opportunity to hear more voices, to hear your thoughts and your ideas and hear what is animating you. And to do that, starting today, starting this spring, we will have a virtual interactive component for all of our salons. And that means we will gather in Zoom to gather insights, thoughts, and catalyzing questions generated from our guest speakers to allow for more deeper reflection with you, because this is why we're here, right? Learning from you is an action item for us, and we want to make sure that that is deeply embedded into our work. So if you're already in Zoom, thank you. Welcome to Zoomland. If you're in Zoom, that means you registered via Eventbrite. So great. If you are watching on Facebook right now, I want to encourage you to take a look at the link below the video and click that link. It will allow you to join us in the Zoom room so you can interact with us, see everyone's faces, ask questions, and reflect yourself. And just a reminder, keep signing up for our events via Eventbrite. Every Sunday, every second Monday, we are here, Urban Consulate Cincinnati. And when you sign up for those Eventbrite events, you're able to stay dialed into all of our activities, and it'll make sure that you're able to participate in our interactive salons. So thank you for allowing us to be in community with you and deepen that community with you. It means a lot to us. Our work has little meaning without you. So again, thank you. With that, this evening's topic is weighted in a very, very important context. When we think of the word protest, we can easily conjure up images of civil rights leaders risking life, risking limb, and sometimes losing their lives indeed, to stand up against racism and white supremacy, and the self-perpetuating systems that are created. The great freedom fighter, Martin Luther King, whom we celebrate every January, a practitioner of peaceful protest himself, was assassinated for his peaceful effort. And that is a fact that we have to live with and breathe with. So just how do we locate what he left, his legacy of protest? How do we locate ourselves within that? And the truth is, we needn't look too far back into the rearview mirror to see the legacy of the efforts of freedom fighters like Martin Luther King. After the shooting of Mike Brown, after the murder of George Floyd, Black Lives Matter supporters took to the streets seeking justice. And they were seeking justice for lives taken too soon and lives that were taken as a part of a systematic effort to support a lie, and to support the lie that Black lives matter less than white lives. Of course, all lives matter, but Black lives can't matter unless white lives do. But it was that protest, it was this years-long push for systems change that this year garnered the Black Lives Matter movement a nomination for the Nobel Peace Prize. So here we are, a protest, a movement, a sea change of voices joining together, cross-racial, have come together and have captured the attention and the hearts and the spirits of the world. And so here we have this big global impact of the Black Lives Matter movement. It started with a protest, one single protest. Someone said, no, enough. That's what it was. So how do we locate ourselves in this big discussion about protest? So with us tonight are two incredible organizers, activists, poets. We have an artist, and we have a facilitator who, through their work and their individual efforts, are using their voices to make change, but also actuating other people in their ability to raise their voices to change the world. First, I am so thrilled to welcome to the Urban Consulate stage, Nikita Anderson. Welcome, Nikita. Nikita is Director of Organizing for Cohere, a community engagement and strategy company. They work to drive better decisions by getting the right people, the everyday experts, to the table. Yes, a native of Cincinnati, Ohio, Nikita is a dedicated voice for social change and empowerment. Nikita is the mother of 4 beautiful children. Nikita's passion for creating communities and lifting up those around her from her own experiences with poverty and struggle. Nikita loves meeting bridge builders all across Cincinnati, but on Sundays, you can catch her watching the Bengals game. Yes, welcome, Nikita. So good to be sitting with you in dialogue.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Next up is Aprina's Revolutionary Love. Aprina's Revolutionary Love is a revolutionary musical spirit specializing in the art of radical love. She is a professional of people empowerment and is fueled by the simple power of compassion. Aprina's Revolutionary Love's motto is, we are not just going to talk about love, we are going to be love. Hashtag Aprina's Revolutionary Love. Welcome. Welcome, welcome. Born and raised in the Queen City, Desiree, the silent poet Hosley, is known for being the quietest person in the room until she takes the stage. Although spoken word is where she cut her teeth, you can find her acting, speaking, and community organizing. She values linking people facilitating conversation, and bringing healing to those around her. Welcome, Desiree.
So happy to be here. Thank you.
Also joining us this evening is my fella amazing co-host, Megan Trishler. She is an amazing presence in Cincinnati. Megan is a designer, a spiritual leader, and right here in our city, she spends a great deal of time helping people along their journeys of faith and action. Megan is a space maker who has a heart for working at neighborhood scale. And that passion has taken her to cities all across the world where she's had an opportunity to collaborate on a number of participatory projects, both in rural and urban communities. Welcome, Megan.
Good to be here. As always, thank you all.
So without further ado, I want to welcome the silent poet to the Urban Consulate stage to ground us in some original spoken word.
Thank you. Aujourd'hui, tu écoutes moi. Je suis ton muse et tout le monde sont mon artiste. Je m'appelle Désirée. Mais tout le monde, c'est moi le poète du silence. Mon mot arrive quand je départ. Mais aujourd'hui, mon mot, c'est l'exact moment que tu conviens. Et merci. A mother's cry. My heart goes out to every mother who has lost a son to gun violence. My heart goes out to every mother who has lost a son to police brutality. My heart goes out to every mother who has lost a child. My heart goes out to every bullet that has been pulled back with fault of fear, of a skin color that was not chosen by the fallen. Mine triggered the minute I walked out of my door. I am a walking biblical verse, ashes to ashes, dust to dust. Surrounded by angels, pain only exists in the eyes of the ones who can't protect me. Pain only exists in the eyes of those marching on the front lines. Pain only exists. Who will hold my mother in this trying time? Who will console her? Who will give her peace? Yet this fight has been going on for so long. We fight, blinded by failed pretenses, failed systems, another grievance, another not guilty, another. These streets belong to me. Birthed on this land, fearless, bright-eyed, with goals and aspirations, being Black in America was the glory of my being. Who knew that by the time I grew up, I would witness protests for the killing of a Black boy, Timothy Thomas? Who knew I would feel victimized by UCPD on the territory of public streets, Sam Dubose? Murder on the land that said that I am supposed to be free? The 2000s have been very triggering. Yet you look for hope or a sign. Visuals turned into repetitive speech, shielding us from the trauma that does exist, pushing us towards diversity and inclusion, forming safe spaces because Black people are tired of smiling and giving high fives or being an ally, rather than making change and not being silent. Putting your feet to the pavement, reassuring that a slap on the wrist is not the standard anymore. Accountability must come first. We have acknowledged the downfall of failed systems for too long, but these are my streets. Even though they were claimed by a pandemic pausing the world, glued to the downfall of our country, 8 minutes and 46 seconds surge in uproar. 8 minutes and 46 seconds open eyes that have been shut since the murder of Emmett Till, Trayvon Martin, Sandra Bland. Yet 8 minutes and 46 seconds sparked change in our city. Coming together by the masses, George Floyd, Breonna Taylor's cries were heard, seen, pushed in our faces, so we reclaimed our streets. As many watch while dining outside, yet your privilege to not have to fear death, rather with a mask on or hands up, this trauma must end. In these streets, Marches, raised voices, curfews, homelessness suffered from unwarranted arrest. What's more effective, calling in versus calling out? How about just listening to our people? How about just listening to our outcries? Black Lives Matter on pavements instead of Black bodies. Listen to the activists. Listen to your neighbors. Listen to Black people. Black lives are here and ain't going nowhere. We are brilliant and these streets are ours. We are business owners, artists, government officials, presidents, and vice presidents. Our youth have us to look up to. They get to see firsthand the power we have. Instead of fearing us, applaud us, because these streets will forever be our home. Thank you.
Mm. Whew. Thank you. Thank you. Desiree, the silent poet Hosley. What a word. And you know, what's so tremendous about what you just shared is that you took it from global to Cincinnati in one setting, and you took us on a real journey. These streets will always be ours. Thank you for that reminder, Desiree. So let's enter some more voices into this dialogue. So the silent poet has set us off right. And we are now going to welcome Nikita and Aprina's Revolutionary Love. So I want to start with a bit of a check-in with both of you. So tell me, look, we're talking about protest. It has so many different meanings, but what meaning are you carrying of protest into this dialogue today? And how are you sitting in that meaning tonight? Aprina's love.
That's for me. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh man. The meaning for me is it's multi-tiered for sure. It's definitely not one-dimensional. And so I'm going to share a very 360 like perspective of protests tonight.
Phenomenal. Nikita, what about you?
I guess what I'm bringing in with me tonight would be disruption. I guess when I think of protests, I think of disrupting the norm. And so, like it is multi-tiered, and it can be personal or it can be public. But for us, I think when we talked about this before, it's just like protests can mean so many different things. And so I'm ready, I guess, to dig in and talk more about each specific meaning of protest.
Right. Well, let me keep it with you. So when you think about what inspires you, what drives your desire to either raise your voice, to oppose oppression, or to help others do it? What's the driving spirit behind that for you?
Oh man, I don't know. I guess I've always been vocal. So like for me, it's never really been an issue to raise my voice when something didn't feel right. And so now where I am in my life, like what it means, it definitely is personal and spiritual. Like I feel like, just, being Black and being a woman, but like taking that, politically and publicly, like it has really changed to just, stand up for yourself in school. When you think about like a teacher being mean and calling on you for the homework versus, how you show up at work in the workplace, and even in the streets when we are out in the streets protesting and rioting. But the meaning, it has really evolved, and more so within this last year, but overall just in my journey of organizing, because I have not always been in this light. You know, well, so I think about, you know, just trying to raise kids and pull myself out of poverty. You don't think of like actions like joining marches or things like that. You're just trying to wake up and get the bills paid and go about life. And so really seeing how important it is for us to use our voice if we can, come out of, you know, the day-to-day grind of trying to survive and show up. It means so much more. And it means even more for us as mothers of Black women who are caretakers and providers to stop doing all of that and then assert ourselves in other spaces to make sure that our voices are being heard.
Mm. I want to direct this and engage you, Aprina, but in a different way. So in your experience, what is like the defining characteristic of people who protest? Like why do you think people are driven to protest?
That's a good question. So pain, we talked about this a little bit, that pain and the foundation will drive you to do a lot of different things. And when you see 100 or 500 or thousands of people gathering under a theme that you never really got to talk about or express yourself under, then you're ready to go express your pain. Totally different. That's not like going at the bar, taking a couple shots, doing a couple little twerks, or, you know, you going shopping or you sexing it up, whatever. Now it's different. It's like, I don't really have to destroy myself, so I get to go out and just raise my voice with 1,000 other people. Here I am. And so I definitely think that pain is key. Secondly, when we see people in pain, or like Nikita was saying, when we see something that's not right and it just strikes our core, we can't sleep at night, we can't function afterwards, like, bet, here we go. We're definitely going to do it. So I know I'm speaking for myself and others on this call who also led protests and who are a part of protests. But I also know that, like I said, protests are multi-tiered, and so it may not be thousands of people just out marching. It might simply be a face-to-face, one-on-one conversation with somebody that you feel is a fool, and they're hurting people. So,
yeah. Right, you can protest in person and let somebody know, let somebody know to do it. So, but this is interesting. So you're talking about pain, right? In the context of protesting, yeah. People coming together, like, I'm tired of being in pain. I'm going to try to do something about it. I'm seeking out my own prescription, and my prescription is raising my voice. So one thing I'm trying to really understand is the love that people bring to this work. And so, when you said to me, I have a love for organizing, it seems almost counterintuitive, but can you maybe give me some insight into how can you coexist in a place of pain and love, like in order, right? And maybe tell me a little bit more personally about how you came to do it.
You guys might see me do that a lot during this, okay? Take a deep breath before I say, or pause. So just give me a heads up. Oh boy. Personally, when I was younger, my protests looked like this kid who kept calling me, you know, a nigger. And every day, right before he would get to his gate, I would get my hand on it, but he would shut the gate and go in the house. And eventually, I gave up. One day, I caught him slipping, and I had a belt on, and I told him that I was gonna whoop him. That's not exactly what I said, but I said something very similar to that. Anyways, I beat the hell out of him. We're about the same age, but I beat him because I was so tired of that. But I got in trouble. His grandmother called the police. They didn't know what led up to that. And so I started to learn very early on that is a style of protest, but that doesn't really get the results that I want in an expedited way. And so, lots of feelings right now. I learned that just interacting with someone differently, using a different frame to interact with them based on these problems that I have with them or a whole bunch of people have with them, has been extremely successful versus going about it with that particular kind of method, because that turns into a war eventually. Like if I have thousands of people following me and I go punch somebody, then I got 1,000 people punching somebody. You know, so the balance definitely came from personal experience. Number one, the balance also comes because some of these topics are so fragile. We don't have any other choice but to balance ourselves, because we could jeopardize 33,000 people over here, 6,000 people over here, and people who are waiting on something that is right on the verge of coming through. We could jeopardize it if we do not balance these particular two, love and anger, and love and aggression. So not to say that I've never been angry, because I totally was about a month ago, but my anger does not supersede my love, and my anger actually motivates me and helps me navigate with love so much better. Like I get the best ideas when I'm angry. Like,
Oh,
you want to learn more about that? I'll talk to you. Just hit me up in the chat.
oh, well, see, now we know why they call you Aprina's revolutionary love. You know, love will be the revolution. A very good friend of mine has that on
Right.
her bumper sticker. And it's true. Radical love and radical empathy. We had a whole discussion about that. But let me turn it back to you, Nikita. So talk about your love for organizing. What's the story?
So, yeah, I definitely agree with Prina with finding that balance. And for me, you know, I had a job that allowed me to witness community meetings. And, you know, if people watching know where I am, I'm in Avondale. And so we're in the middle of a lot of development. We're facing gentrification and things like that. And so I'm watching meetings take place and people talk about change and development, but there weren't people at the table that like I resonated with. So there weren't any single mothers, there weren't any people, you know, clearly living in poverty. There wasn't anyone at the table who was in any of the subsidized housing from Avondale. So, you know, when you think about a neighborhood being almost 0.5% in poverty, you have all of that representation missing. And so after months of witnessing these things happen, I just was like, okay, I need to be more than just an employee at a nonprofit in the neighborhood. I need to be active because no one is talking about, you know, how those individuals feel. And so it was really just like, at the time I wasn't a resident at Avondale, so I moved to Avondale, but it was just, I don't know, like the love of not even necessarily me, but the love of my community and other people struggling like me, and seeing that their voices wasn't heard. And then the things that was said about those people. And so it was always, I'll say, our fault, right? That we're not involved and we're not showing up. That we just don't care about our future. We don't care about education. We don't care about housing. And I'm like, no, like I'm living it. It's like people are stressed out. They're dealing with mental illness. They're dealing with, you know, trying to raise kids. They're trying to pull themselves out of poverty. They're in struggle mode. And when you're struggling to survive, there's no way, you know, there's hardly a way to make space and room to advocate and show up to meetings and things like that, or take off of work. And so that was like the first thing that's like, okay, people have to make sure that they're hearing the side of the story from the other person. There's usually the person in poverty, the single mama, the, you know, person working 2 or 3 jobs. And so I started joining committees. And like I said, I moved to Avondale. And so like that was like the first like flicker of love. And then after, you know, going through all of that, I was able to go through the Public Allies program. And that was where I really realized that like it's one thing to show up. If you can get someone to show up and talk about, you know, the issues that they're having at these meetings and be a voice, like that's just one level. But if we're not changing the policies, like we'll continue to have people who are in these situations where they continue to be unheard and undervalued. And the perception is, and everyone is comfortable with the story of, oh, well, they just don't care because we flyer dropped and we told them about this meeting and we told them about this program. So if they don't show up, they just don't want it. But it's like, no, that's not the case. And if you aren't that person living that experience, right, you'll never know. So you retired with, a college degree and you own a house, you don't understand why the people 2 doors down in the subsidized housing are living the way they live if you've never had to live that way. So that was what really motivated me to like making sure that I was using my voice, but also trying to get other people to use theirs.
I just want to just sit in that space right now because you were animated into action by a love for your neighbors, by a love for the people in your community, and by a sense of protecting them, protecting the narrative and protecting humanity. And I think as I examine the action of protest and the spirit of protest, especially when it comes to how we as Black people move in the world and demonstrate and raise our voices, it's an act of radical love. It's an act of, in that way, it's selflessness. So I want to kind of take it to a personal level because we've already established protests can be big, 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 but it can also reside right in our bodies, right in ourselves. So Aprina's revolutionary love, speak on this. Give me some insight into what it means to protest on a personal level by reclaiming who we are, who you are in every space. I mean, isn't that part of it? Like it's the importance of people asserting who they are in any place, in any setting. What level of protest does that bring forth in your mind? It's crazy, you're on mute. It's crazy that that's even a protest. Like, I had an experience recently where, it was very clear to me that the way people see me wear my hair was this act of revolution, right? Like, it's absurd. And the fact that we have to try and normalize these things feels like a protest. So can you speak on that a little bit?
Yeah, I'm going to give a few examples really quickly. So back some years, I'll never say who it was, but I organized this meeting and I was a teenager, and it was a very small meeting, and all it was to bring to the forefront some things that I saw that was happening. And the whole meeting turned into something totally different. The individuals who are running it, they do something totally different now with other people as a result of this. And that was small. That was a room full of like 20 people. There was also another occurrence that happened. I was standing on a corner with my guitar and I had a sign that said gentrification. So I was on the corner of Vine and what is that? Liberty? I think Liberty Street. Yeah. Anyways, I was there and that was a protest for me. And, I interacted with a lot of people. There's a lot of people down there, people of color specifically, who did not know what the word gentrification meant, which blew my entire mind. So I was down there teaching school for a very long time. Another, thing was being in a hip hop space where hip hop is commonly used very negatively, especially in our day and time, where originally it was used to educate, it was used to bring the community together. That's what the tool was originally for. So I've been, in lots of spaces, hundreds of spaces where I get up and I'll spit some bars, I'll sing a little bit, strum the guitar a little bit, And it's an act of protest. And I win a lot of artists over. They'll never say it here in the city, and I don't need the credit, but win a lot of artists over to understand that you have so much power when you're on the stage. I don't care if you don't want to be an idol or if you don't want to be a role model. It doesn't matter. As soon as you stepped out there, you put your face on something, you are. And so obviously some of the biggest, deepest things I've seen is in these community meetings, like Nikita said. I'm in rooms with people and I guess they just think that I came from where they came from so they can say whatever they want to say. And so I, had to keep my mouth shut for a very long time and then come back to the table after I was quiet and respectful, watching people plan and put things together for me and people like me, or a particular group of people that I was representing in the moment. And those small face-to-face interactions like that have happened so many times for me. And sometimes it just takes the right person to get this person who's causing oppression or just being self-centered, not trying to look at the whole picture. It takes the right person to get in their face and talk to them in a certain way, and they will listen, So for people of color, what I've seen over the last 4.5 years is lots of people entering rooms and just giving everything that they got to a big board of people or a funding committee or a community council or whatever, because they're tired. And it is important for us to put our bodies in the space because we are here and we need to live. We need to fulfill our dreams and our destiny as well. We need to also get a piece of that big old pie that's out there. And so I know that it's important for us to speak. It does nothing for us to go to the grave with all these. It does nothing.
No.
And so we have to go past what everybody might think, might feel, your salary, your business, your friends. We have to go past that and put ourselves in these places to reclaim the piece of the territory that is ours. However you do it. If you don't want to use your voice, use your hands. If you don't want to use your hands, use the guitar, use the piano. If you don't want to use that, use your feet. If you don't want to use that, use your house. If you don't want to use that, use your money. Use something, but do something. Yeah.
No points of departure. There's just too many places. Like, first of all, like Audre Lorde said, your silence will not protect you. So you think not raising your voice or using your influence and all of the other great suggestions you made, this is being recorded. If you need to go back, press rewind. Apria's Revolutionary Love will get you all the points. But my point is that we are built to speak up in whatever way we can. When you can't use your voice, when you can't use your body, actuate some other point of protest. There's so many points of departure. And, I have to tell you, you hit this place in my heart because I am a denizen of the nonprofit world like you, Nikita. And, sometimes I think about, well, what sacrifice do I make to be active in this work right now? And that's the kind of introspection that I do often enough that when I hear Apria's Revolutionary Love say that, it makes me think, like, what are you doing, Naima, to change from your seat, from your place? It's a constant introspection. Nikita, I want to go back to you because, we don't want to place any hierarchy above the personal protest, the collective. They're both important, right? You got to start somewhere. But can you speak to the power of the collective protest? You talked earlier about the energy you feel when you're surrounded by thousands of people. Can you speak a little bit more in depth about that?
Yeah. Well, I guess anytime we look back and we think about protest, it's typically an image of, I'm gonna just say, a bunch of people. So, for smaller groups, it might only just be like a few hundred or so gathered at like Washington Park, or if you think about thousands of people in the Million Man March or something like that. But the collective is important because I think that for a lot of people, that is like the trigger to say like, okay, it is okay to join and to participate in that. And so like for me, in the summer, it was like watching the news at like midnight and seeing everybody, it's just downtown, like traffic. And it's like, okay, I gotta go. And then I get down there and the streets are blocked off. And so like, I'm directing traffic. So I'm telling people, I'm like, if you're trying to avoid the traffic and you're not a part of the protest, you might want to turn around and go out because the street is blocked off. People aren't moving. We getting out of our cars. Like, this is important. And so, but if it wasn't for me seeing the images of others, and at that time, like that was the first night. So it was like everybody was just in their cars and stuff, I guess, before it got crazy. And then just stuck because of everything, like the police started blocking up streets. Like that is what led me to like go out. And I know for some people, it's, I mean, we were in the middle of a pandemic. So a lot of people was like, I'm not choosing to get in, large crowds or do any of that because, it's not safe or anything like that. But for others, it was seeing people gathering that like led them to want to be in that place. It was like a calling almost. And I think it's even more important when you look at that, the collective and what the collective is made up of. So for us, and I mean, just off of my recollection, I was, going downtown like that entire weekend. And so to see white people and non-Black allies down there in like numbers, it's like, okay. So obviously, people were feeling drawn to that space. And it wasn't just angry Black folks who were tired of being victims of police brutality. It was our allies. And, like I saw a group of kids and it was, like a white young guys. They were probably in high school and like Asians. And he's like, I'm not Black, but I get, discriminated against for being Asian. I'm down here too because this matters. And so like that unity that you feel when you're a part of a group is very powerful and very moving. And it influences others. It influences others. And sometimes you have to be the first person out there to get everybody out there, and I think the road that Aprina and I usually take, sometimes we are the first person to say something that everyone might not like, or, be the first person to say like, hey, you gonna show up with me? I'm going down there. And so when I think about what my friend and I did, starting the 381 initiative, we started the mobile protest parade this summer so that people could protest safely in their cars and do it with their children. And so sometimes, we got 10 cars to show up, and sometimes it was just 3 of us, me, him, and another one of our friends, and we were still riding through affluent, predominantly white neighborhoods, blowing our horns and doing that. And so sometimes, you don't have to have hundreds or thousands of people. You can just have 1 or 2, but like that gathering is still so vital to the cause and the purpose, and especially in influencing other people to feel okay, even if they don't share the same exact cause or drive as you. Like they still know that it's okay to use their voice because they see you or see others out there using yours.
Right. And I mean, and that in and of itself is one of the powers of protest. It agitates people into action. And so here's what I want to ask, because public space is, it serves so many purposes, but within the context of protest, you talk about what you witnessed and what you plan and what you organize in terms of group protest happening in public space. One thing that's pretty remarkable to me, not surprising, still remarkable, is sort of the use of public space to protest the senseless racist violence perpetrated against Black lives, right? And how when we utilize those spaces, it's dangerous, right? when Black people gather, or a coalition of people, including Black people, gather to protest, it's dangerous. And yet, what we saw on January 6th with the terror attack on the US Capitol building was when white people gather and they're angry, it's under policed, it's fine, right? It's not a terror attack, it's okay. Look at, first of all, like, how do you receive that diametrically opposed message that, look, Black people can't be mad, without it being dangerous? And yet that same invitation to anger is doled out to our white counterparts. As organizers, how does that hit your heart and soul? And what do we do about it?
So I'm bubbling over right now. Still, I want to mix in the collectively part too with this question. I love what's happening in the chat too. I love that. So collectively, what happens is it's like we're sending a spiritual wave of something, like an attack. I don't know if anybody plays games out here, but you ever play like Final Fantasy VII or something like that, you know what I'm talking about. But basically what it's like is people being, you know, in their spaces, in their dimensions of where they come from, because we all live in different dimensions from house to house, even on the same street. And there's a validation that comes with it. It's like, dang, all my life I knew that was wrong, but now there's about 10,000 people out there saying it's wrong. I can finally break free. Like, whoa, this is so deep. I gotta make this short. I can finally break free out of this lie I've been living my whole life as a white person living in a white community, or a Black person living in a Black community, or an Asian person living in a Mexican, whatever, whoever, whatever you call yourself. I can finally break free from this lie I've been told, jumping inside of this movement right here. Collectively, we heal in those moments. I know that when people were screaming and crying, I don't know how many protests I was a part of last summer. It was crazy. I got media, somebody from the media hit us up and said we had the biggest protest in Cincinnati ever. I was like, my Jesus. Did we go after that conclusion? We did not. But it was simply because people were tired. And secondly, you know, I got called to this one community. I showed up, all white people, and I love y'all. My daddy's white. You know, so anyways, I show up and they're like, yes, our town is so racist. Lead us. Let's march. Let's get in the streets. And so, you know, we went out there, we marched, and it was a generational curse being broke off of people. I've lived my whole life ostracizing people and living in my comfort, not even knowing that I'm indirectly moving this narrative, you know, oh my God. So the collective for me was a worldwide wave of supernatural healing for things that have taken place on this planet for so long that were not talked about or touched. The whole dang world was forced to see it, you know? So when I think about the US Capitol and what happened there, it reminds me of this protest that I was in the middle of. And all these cute little white women, they were so cute. They look like my grandma. Shouts out to you, Callie. I miss you so much. But anyways, they were so cute. They were out on the sidelines. They had Blue Lives Matter, and they were looking at me, and they were scared to death because a Black girl in the front, and all these white people marching behind, and her hood, and she didn't know what to do. So they were shocked that when we got to the end, we stopped at the police station and we wrapped it up, that nothing happened, because they were being told the whole time, they're bringing those bringing them niggers in here, and they're going to do this and they're going to do that. None of that happened. They were shocked. They looked at me, they hugged me, they kissed me. Cops came up, hugged me, cried, prayed for me. All kinds of stuff happened. So a lot of people, yes, of course, they're so persuaded by the media because the media only shares a percentage of stories. They don't share the whole perspective. And so people are brainwashed to think one thing. And so everyone, when I saw the US Capitol, a lot of people were upset about it. But what I saw was what we went through last summer, an unheard voice. That is what I saw. And a lot of people may not agree with me on this call, but that's exactly what I saw. The second point of not being reprimanded. I think a lot of people don't understand where the White House is and all of that stuff. I don't know if you've ever been to Washington, D.C. There's not a lot of security there. When I went in the Rayburn building, I was surprised. I was hopping every congressman's door that I could. That was in a I was like, dang, there's no security. So they pretty much set themselves up for that kind of, they knew it was going to come eventually. And these people took advantage of it. They knew that there was not going to be no hardcore security, and they took advantage of it. And as far as, you know, people being arrested and things like that, I don't know how aggressive authorities are going in on that particular piece, but they should go really aggressive, obviously. But are they going to do it? I mean, how many times have we seen it over and over again where they don't do it? I don't hold my breath anymore.
Yeah.
I don't. I learned to take my anger and put it somewhere else.
Yeah.
Because putting my anger there on social media and other places doesn't do much for the people around me with needs that need to be met right now in my community. And so them normalizing it or saying it was just a riot or it was just a simple protest, man, I've heard that stuff my entire life. And so I'm used to it. It doesn't mean that I'm desensitized to it. It just means that I got to go even harder than I've ever went in my entire life, along with other people who feel the exact same way. I'm hoping and praying that people out of these protests, these thousands of people that we march with, go past being an ally. Being an ally, that ain't nothing. When I was in these protests, I said, we are neighbors. You are my brother. You are my sister. I ain't trying to hurt nobody by taking your word and throwing it away. But until we can adopt that concept, we're not going to get past. Marching right here is not going to do everything we need to do. We need to mobilize in the positions that we see the most trouble inside of. And so that's the scary part for a lot of people. They want to do one part of the protest, but not the other half. The sacrifice is not there, you know? Anyways, I just rambled on a lot. Sorry, y'all. Sorry.
No, it's just like there is a safety in some kinds of protests. And the real challenge is, how do we break away from the safety and put ourselves in a place of and it looks different for different people. So I need to be careful. Like, what I'm not saying is, you know, go out and put yourself in harm's way. When I am saying, what is that break point? Like, what's the break point where you step over that threshold, even if it's a little toe over your sense of safety? But here's the thing, like, you said some things that was like, yes, that's the activist spirit. And then you read like pleasure activism and you realize that go hard mentality, go hard every day mentality, first of all, from Stacey Abrams to Kamala to, you know, Black women have been doing some things. Kamala being Black and half Asian. Black women be doing all the things. And it's just like, we're tired. So as you actuate yourself, Nikita, in this work, right? And when I say this work, I mean organizing. How do you prevent that level of like utter self-sacrifice where you're no longer good for the cause because you're going hard all day long? Like, how do you protect your energy, your spirit, and your soul when you know you're called to a place that is anything but, is like built to literally do the opposite? How do you preserve yourself?
I don't know. Like, I do. For me, I do think it's a calling. It's you know, more than just a passion. It's like I felt like I had to use my voice for others since high school. Not necessarily when I think about like social justice and, you know, civil rights, but just speaking up for others. And so to now, you know, be in this space where you know, it's one thing to protest, but we're really advocating for policy change, right? We want to change these systems that are doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing. They're just not working for us. So, I mean, I'm a walk-in testimony in doing it. So, like I mentioned, you know, my friend and I started in 381. Shout out to Leon Washington. Earlier this summer, and it was like 381 days of protest. And that meant nonstop protesting every day, starting when we started in June and July. And it's like, yeah, then I found out I was pregnant. And so for me, my participation in that just went down, and then it just stopped. Like between trying to juggle remote learning and virtual school and working full time and, you know, being pregnant. Like I can't do it. And so for me, thank God for Public Allies and the whole learning of self-care, because if I wouldn't have went through that first, I don't know where I would be now. And, you know, just dealing with mental health and everything before even putting myself out here in this space. You know, that was a challenge. And so to really be adamant about whether it's personal protests and activities or even with work, like I need time to grieve, I need time to rest, I need time to relax. And so, you know, going all the way back to what does it look like to protest individually, just Black bodies resting is a form of protest, because we're the laborers. And I, you know, whatever narrative people want to spin about Black folks being lazy is a lie. You know, our bodies endure a lot, and we keep going, especially as Black women. When you think about us having to carry on and be providers in so many ways, like we can't stop until we're forced to physically, and most times. And so I'm, you know, I have learned to feel less guilty for taking the time that I need for myself and my body and my children. Because we feel guilty, and we're made to feel guilty, right? Like, oh, you can't work and be pregnant, and you know, and organize and show up to school meetings and do this. Like, you know, we just, our culture is like keep going, keep going, keep going. We don't have a culture where we celebrate rest and revitalization. Because if I can't be 100%, then what good is that anyway? And so, and you know, famous saying, you can't pour from an empty vessel. So like I have to replenish myself. And so, and that in itself is protest. As you know, activists are, you know, leaders, so many of people who, you know, I feel like a baby in this world compared to Aprina and so many other important people around the city. But people have taken their lives because of the burnout. You know, I had my boss tell me like, yeah, organizing, you know, you're really good at it for maybe a year or two. It's like a burnout. And then, you know, the type of organizing that I'm doing for work is a little different than like political campaigns and things like that. And so to hear that, and it's like, oh, wait, so there's going to come a time where I hate organizing. And I mean, honestly, in my professional career, I am shifting out of organizing. But being able to like create that space and have like in the summer, have a conversation with, you know, my boss and be like, I think I need to work less hours so I can focus on organizing, you know, in the social justice space, because this is important to me and the time is now and I feel called now. And I got 4 mouths to feed by myself. And I want to, you know, cut some hours so that I can invest time, you know, organizing mobile protests and trying to raise money. And so, you know, when you think of like all of those things, I know women who have walked away from jobs because they just could not do it anymore in the organizing space, because it just wasn't filling them. And I think a lot of times when you think about people like us who care about our communities and care about, you know, getting equity for Black bodies, like you just go, and you run yourself into the ground, and or you're killed. So, you know, like you either kill yourself or someone kills you, and that's it. And then we give you your flowers after the fact. Maybe or maybe not, depending on, you know, how famous you were or how much news coverage you got, because there's so many people who do work daily that go unrecognized and are unsung heroes in this field. And so it's like, you have to be able to put your foot down and say, no, like, I am not working today. I am not organizing today. I know that I need to rest. I know that I need to grieve. I know that I just might need to cry or just lay in my bed and not do anything except for eat takeout. And having the strength to do that, it can be difficult, but I think we are in a space where we're finding that now, where it's easier. And Aprina, correct me if I'm wrong, where it might not have been this easy years ago, but like now, it's easy to say no. Like, I would love to help you, but I'm gonna have to pass. Because if we don't, then, you know, what good are we to our children? And we have children, like we have birthed babies that depend on us more than this work. And hopefully through them, our work will live on. But if we can't even raise them, then, you know, I feel like, well, what was the point? Like, this is important, but it's not more important than making sure my health is taken care of and, you know, my family is being provided for.
So you notice I'm like hanging on to your every word, Nikita, because I need those lessons. I mean, like, I'm not in your world and I'm still trying to figure out how can I be good to myself and do my work without sacrificing myself. Yeah, it's just one of those foundational questions, but I want to close us out for this portion of our dialogue, because all of the feeling and emotion and power of what you're saying, I hope we can take with us from today and do some amazing things. I get energized just listening to you both speak. But I want to close out with something, because what is going on right here in these boxes, these square boxes, is so meta right now, because what the audience may not know is that Aprina and Nikita, y'all know each other. And Aprina had a very, very real impact on your life, Nikita, inspiring you to organize. So I want to close out on this, like, sis, you know what? I see you. I love you. You inspire me. And when I heard you tell that story, Nikita, I was like, oh my gosh, like, I think this is the beauty of what we do. And so can you maybe speak to what you shared, which was this like abiding sort of respect and regard for the work that Aprina did and how it impacted you as an organizer?
Well, first, I'll shout out Gabriel's Place in Avondale. And so that is where I first met Aprina. And that is, you know, that was the setting of witnessing those community meetings and what led me to move into the Pasadena in the first place. But Aprina was one of the guests for one of my family night events, and she came and she performed. And it was just amazing to just see her living freely and, you know, being who she was authentically with no regrets. And so it was just like instantly falling in love with the energy. Mm-hmm. And so, like, I was telling you, for it to be like full circle, here we are, it was at 5 years later, where, you know, like, now I'm regarded as an organizer. I'm regarded as an organizer like her. And it was, you know, interacting with her and people like her in that space, a Gabriel space, that really led to the passion and the movement to me being where I am now. So shout out to Aprina and all the lives that I know you touched, not just mine, and how important it is for us to, you know, individually live ourselves, be ourselves, live our authentic lives, because we never know who we're inspiring or who's watching us and what that person is supposed to do because they were impacted and touched by you, you know, all of those years ago. So yes, and I haven't looked back since. I love where we both are, because now I see, like, she's not just a singer songwriter, right? like I thought she was just singing. Like, oh, she could sing, but like she out here really changing the world. So I love that about you, Aprina. So thank you for entering my life.
I love you. I literally was just thinking about how I used to come get the alkaline water and how it's such a big deal being there with you, sis. Man, we gonna talk after this. I'm trying to hold back real quick. You know, I'm trying
And
to hold it back. Naima, would you let me sing a little bit to everybody? Can I just do like a minute?
please.
Okay. Is it okay if everybody turns their mics on? It might sound really crazy, but I would love to do just a little quick minute sing along. Is that okay?
I think we might have everybody on mute, but I'm going to ask JP,
Okay.
our
Okay.
Wizard of Oz, to see if he can do some magic. JP, can you help us out?
Sure thing.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
I was trying to see everybody's face too. Y'all like are not on the cameras. I was really sad, but can we just sing really fast? So if you know this song, just sing along with me, because protest is for everybody. Okay. I see a lot going down in the chat. Protest is for everybody. I'm definitely a multicultural person. Every freaking body. So yeah, just sing along with me. If you know it, it's okay if you sing off key. This is not about perfection. This is simply about us just vibing in a way that we would be doing if the pandemic was not in effect right now. So think of your fellow man, lend them a helping hand.
Love in your heart.
Yeah. Hey, you see it's getting late. Oh, please don't hesitate.
Put love in your heart.
And the world will
Be a better place.
The world will be a
Better place for me.
and me. You just wait and see.
And
Put a little love in your heart.
Yes.
That's the most important, y'all.
Oh, I don't know who just had that riff just now, but thank you for the riff. Thank you. Thank you.
I'll claim it. It was Catherine.
Catherine Gardette.
Yeah.
You know what? Thank you for the
Backing up my girl Aprina.
voice. See, we're about to have a whole Urban Consulate choir. Little did you know you were joining the Urban Consulate choir tonight. Thank you, sis. Aprina's Revolutionary Love. Thank you, Nikita Anderson, for your voices, for your stories, and for your joy and the joy and the energy that you bring to this space. I wish we had so much time to dig into this, but thank you, thank you, thank you. It's extraordinary. And I hope everybody joining us in Zoom land, joining us on Facebook Live, got just a little touch of just the brilliance of these two women. So we're going to transition, hard pivot. That's my favorite phrase out, hard pivot. I'm gonna take it. I'm gonna send it over to my fellow co-host, Megan Trishler, who is going to guide us through some foundational questions to help us process what we just heard and what has been stewing within us. Meg?
Thank you, Naima. Thank you so much, Nikita, Aprina, Desiree. Wonderful to just listen, and thank you for sharing your stories as well. It's a real treat. So don't leave, everyone. I see people saying thanks and logging off. Don't leave. This is the part of the Urban Consulate that where we get to really dive in and get to connect as a community, whether you're here in Cincinnati or joining in from another city. I saw some Detroit folks on the call earlier as well. Don't leave. This is the breakout portion of our salon for this evening. So I think we might have some folks maybe transitioning over from Facebook into Zoom. So I'll just give that just a minute, but I wanted to just take a second. JP, do we have our agreement slide? Wonderful, thank you. So we're going to put you in breakout rooms, and we'll have about 15 minutes or so in the breakouts for you to connect. And we've got a question that we want you to sort of reflect on and share together. But before we go into breakouts, it's important, and I would presume if you've been in conversations like this before, in these kind of events before, there's usually some ground setting or some kind of parameters, rules, practices, however you want to, whatever you want to call them, that we try to abide by. And so these are adopted from a number of different places. I think I saw Eileen Cooper Reed on this call earlier, and Eileen gave us these to sort of lean into. So I want to just touch on these sort of 4 agreements that we'd like to invite you to agree to as we go into breakout space. And they're pretty straightforward, but the first is, of course, to stay engaged. So as we put you in the breakout room, to be present, be in your body, feel your body, stay connected, stay engaged. That's really important when we're practicing deep listening and sharing. The second is experience discomfort. These conversations that we're hosting, these conversations that we're inviting you to participate in, stretch us. Just like our muscles sometimes stretch, that's a sign of growth. When we're feeling stretched, it can be a good thing. It can be pushing us towards new places and inviting us to change or be formed in new ways. So we just invite you to experience some of that discomfort. It's supposed to feel a bit uncomfortable. The third practice is to speak your truth. I really appreciated just listening to Aprina and Nikita, just the way in which they bring personal story into what they're bringing to the table. And so we try to encourage and break out to use I statements, tell your story, speak your truth. You don't need to speak on behalf of a whole group of people. So keep that in mind as we go into these rooms together. And then this is the worst one and also the best one. Expect and accept non-closure. I think when we're in these sort of spaces where we're having dialogue around racial equity, around white supremacy, around decentering whiteness, around just complex, nuanced things, we want to just jump to the finish. We want it just to be okay. And the reality is it's not okay. And part of what we're learning to do is sit in uncomfortable spaces, sit in not knowing. And that's hard. But we invite you to just expect that and to accept that as we marathon our way through this journey that we're all on together. So those are our 4 agreements we invite you to truly consider and agree to as we go into our breakout rooms. And then JP, if you can go ahead and throw the question slide up. So for tonight, again, we'll have about 15 to 18 minutes or so in breakout. Here's what we want you to reflect on and think about together and speak about together. What's protesting mean to you? We heard from Nikita and Aprina a good sort of multi-dimensional definition, both from the very personal to the very communal. And so what's it mean to you? And then again, thinking about story, when have you pressed in? When have you found yourself stepping towards that? And in general, what holds you back? Is there some resistance in you? So I want to just invite you to reflect, to share. I don't know how big our breakout groups are going to be tonight. I'm imagining 5 to 6-ish people. I might have that wrong, but we invite you to make sure that everyone has space to share if you want. You don't have to, but we do, again, encourage you to press in to some of that uncomfortability and join the conversation. So let me pause before we go into breakout rooms. Does anybody have any questions? And you can put them in the chat if you'd like. Okay, we shall press forward. So I think then, JP, I think we're going into breakouts. Is that right? And then, we'll bring you back into the main space and we'll have just a few minutes to kind of harvest and share what we learned and what we heard. And then Naima will close us for the evening. So I hope you can stick around. I see we've got a good 50 folks still on the call, which is wonderful. So I think, JP, we're ready for breakouts.